guys, welcome back to my channel. So before we get started, let's just point out that I have a backdrop and I am so excited. It's taken me so long to get a backdrop. I just have not been happy with my background and I just think this looks a lot more professional, and I just love how sequency it is, and it's like a really pretty rose gold. I did buy it on Amazon. Just type in sequin backdrop and you'll find it. But anyway, today's video is going to be all about cream / liquid highlighting and contouring, and I really wanted to put up a video like this for a long time, but I just haven't been able to find any products that I like for contouring that were just good shades. And I've heard about the LA Girl Pro HD concealers for the longest time, and I picked up one a long time ago, but I never really liked the color. But I finally got some more LA Girl HD Pro concealers, and if you haven't heard about these, then you must be living in a hole, girl. Like, professional makeup artists use these to highlight and contour on their clients. Like, these are a big deal, and these are only like $2 or $3 if you buy them from the actual website or like the manufacturers. Literally everyone compares these to the MAC Pro Longwear Concealer, which I have tried, but I haven't used it enough to actually be able to say if they're dupes or not. But everyone calls these dupes, so if you're interested in a dupe for the MAC Pro Longwear, you should check these out. Just a little quick review on these. They are literally so high quality. Like, these are some of the best concealers ever. They're about a medium to full coverage. I can get about a full coverage out of them, and I've seen them do miracles on people as far as full coverage goes. They're very long wearing. They're very lightweight. They blend out like a dream. They last on your skin all day long. I ordered 6 of them on eBay. You can order them from the LA Girl website. I think Morphe has some, Makeup Geek has some, maybe, I'm not really sure on that. But I ordered them on eBay because you can buy them in lots. But you can buy the entire set on eBay for like $32 or $33. It's a lot better deal to get them on eBay. I got 6 for like $13. And most of the sellers I've seen are located in LA. So I don't know if they have any affiliation with LA Girl. Maybe it is LA Girl selling them. I'm not really sure. The biggest reason that I haven't bought them sooner is because I couldn't figure out the shades that would work for me. So I will post swatches of all these colors on my Instagram. But today I'm going to be showing you guys 2 different methods to highlighting and contouring with cream or liquid products. I'm going to show you guys one where I use the concealers underneath foundation and one where I put it on top. And I did do a highlight and contour tutorial a while back when I reviewed the Ulta Contour Kit. I will link that below in the card if you're interested. But as far as the placement and stuff goes, everything is the same as that one. So if you guys want to see how I highlight and contour with cream or liquid products, then please keep watching. Okay guys, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And like I said, I do have 2 different methods to the highlighting and contouring with cream products. And on one side I have foundation on, and on the other I do not have anything on, just primer and moisturizer. You can use any foundation you want, just make sure it's something that does have pretty good staying power, because you're putting a lot of stuff on top of it and you want it to stay on throughout the day. So I'm going to start working on this side of my face first. A lot of people say for contouring products to use something that's 2 to 3 shades darker than your skin, but I think that's a really bad gauge, because 2 to 3 shades darker for me isn't a whole lot darker than my skin tone is. But for contouring products, you want to make sure that you use something that is very cool toned and very kind of like ashy and like gray, because if you use something that's too warm, like I hate when people say, oh, I use bronzer to contour, because bronzer is not meant to contour, because bronzers are naturally pretty warm because they're meant to warm up your skin tone. They're not meant to contour and sculpt and define and stuff. So you want to use something that is more cool toned and more on the ashy side, because you're going to be mimicking these shadows in your face, and you want it to be as natural as possible. You also don't want it to be like too warm or anything, because that's just going to look muddy and it's just going to look very unnatural. So for contour shades, I bought the shades Toast, Espresso, and Medium Bisque. I actually use Medium Bisque as a bronzer, but if you are very fair, then this would work as a contour. And then for the 2 darker shades for actually contouring, I'm using the shade Toast on this side, and on this side I'm going to be using Espresso. And then for highlighting, you want to make sure that you use something that's at least 2 or 3 shades lighter. Once again, that's kind of not the best gauge, because most brands have different undertones of colors, so you know, 2 to 3 shades lighter just may be a different undertone. But I usually like to stick with colors that are either fair or porcelain or light or something like that. Obviously if you're darker, you don't want to go like with a porcelain or fair shade, so you're just going to have to kind of gauge it by your skin tone and your undertones. But for highlighting on my skin tone, I'm going to be using Porcelain and the Yellow Corrector. I like to use the Yellow Corrector because it just helps brighten things up a little bit. It kind of works the same way as like a banana powder. But with highlighting, you are bringing light and bringing emphasis to the areas that you want to stand out. So typically, I mean, it's going to depend on like your face shape and stuff, but typically you want to highlight under the eyes. You want to highlight a little bit on the forehead depending on how big your forehead is. Sometimes people will highlight their chin, the bridge of the nose. Some people like to highlight under their contour, kind of sharpen their contour up a little bit. A lot of people like to highlight around their nose, around their mouth, just anywhere that you want to stand out or to brighten. And then with contouring, you want to suck everything in and make it look smaller. So like I said, it's going to depend on your face shape. And for instance, if you have a small forehead, you're not going to have to worry about a lot of contouring on the forehead. You can actually highlight more of the forehead instead of contouring. And if you have a larger forehead like myself, then you want to kind of stick more to contouring than highlighting, because like I said, highlighting brings emphasis to an area and brings attention to it. So if you're highlighting something that's bigger or longer, it's going to just make it look more big and more long. So yeah, on Google you can just type in contouring and highlighting for whatever face shape you have, and a lot of times it'll bring up a picture of where to highlight and contour. For the most part, people kind of stick to like the basic highlighting and contouring areas. With the first method, I'm going to show you how to highlight and contour on top of foundation. So I'm going to go in with the yellow corrector first and just make that typical triangle shape. A lot of people like to make a triangle like this, but you don't have to do that. It just kind of, I think it's good to show that in pictures. So what I like to do is go right through here down to about where my nostril stops and then go back up. But if you have a rounder face and you don't want to highlight out through here, like you don't want to highlight around your eyes, because it's going to make your face look rounder and more wide. And then since I don't have a big enough nose to do two methods on it, I think I'm just going to do this method. But I do have a larger forehead, so I'm not going to highlight a lot on my forehead. I'm just going to add a little product pretty much right between my brows, but I'm not taking it up high at all. I'm just going to make an upside down triangle like this, and then kind of like make it like a T shape. I do have a large forehead, and if I highlight too far up, it'll make it look a lot longer. Oh no! Okay, and since I'm doing this method over here, I'm not going to bring it over this far. But now I'm going to go in with the porcelain shade and just go right on top of that. And I'm not going to highlight my chin too much because I do have a wider chin. So if you have a double chin, or if you have a, you know, like a big old chin like me, then you just want to highlight a little bit. If you even do want to highlight, you might want to stick to just not do anything to that area. And then I'm also going to highlight right above my cupid's bow, because this is going to make the lips look bigger. And then I'm going to highlight around my nose like this, and then around my mouth, just because sometimes it can look like you have a 5 o'clock shadow if you have a mustache that you haven't whacked off yet. And I'm also going to go right here below where I'm going to put my contour, because it's just going to help kind of clean things up and just define it a little bit better. So these concealers dry pretty fast, so I'm going to go ahead and work on blending this out, and then I'm going to move on to the contour. So I'm just going to take a beauty blender. This is dampened. This actually isn't a beauty blender. This is from Kohl's. It's from a brand called Earth's Therapeutic or something like that. I'll put it somewhere in the video, but this is actually really comparable to the beauty blender, and I've been absolutely loving it lately. When I first got it, it was pretty hard, and I felt like I was like dabbing my face with a hammer, but it does soften up after you wash it a few times. And yeah, I just want to kind of throw that in there real quick because I haven't talked about this much. So I'm just going to go ahead and stipple that out. And I like using concealers to highlight and contour because it kind of kills two birds with one stone. You don't have to use a beauty blender or a dampened sponge or anything. I like it because it just kind of helps the makeup sink into your skin instead of like sitting on top. But you could use any type of brush. You can use a stippling brush. You can use any brush you want really. But I like a sponge just because you're applying a lot of product. So now I'm going to go ahead and apply the bronzing shade I'm going to be using, and this is medium Bisque. So I'm just going to apply this everywhere I'm going to contour. So in the hollows of my cheeks, along my jawline, just to kind of help lift everything up, and then around my forehead. And like I said, if you have a small forehead, you don't really have to worry about doing this, but if you have a larger forehead, this will be your best friend. I'm also going to apply this down the bridge of my nose. This is just going to help narrow up your nose. I'm just going to kind of make like a V shape towards the tip of my nose, just to kind of make it look more pointy and long instead of like short and stubby like mine naturally is. I'm just going to go ahead and blend that out before I apply the contour shade so you guys can see the difference in the two shades. For this, I am using the bottom of the sponge. I did use the pointy side to blend out the highlight, but I don't want to use the same side or like a same brush. If you're using brushes, don't use the same brush to blend out the highlight and the contour. And if you have a rounder face shape, you definitely want to make sure that you apply it like right around the side of your face so that it kind of brings in your face a little bit more, because you don't want it to look wide, you want it to look more narrow. Okay, so there is the bronze shade. I hope you guys can tell, but it just warms up your skin, and I really don't like to contour without bronzing because I just feel like bronzing just kind of, it just lays down a nice base. Like it just kind of like helps the contour shade, it just blurs it out or something. It just makes it look softer, and I like that look personally because I think it looks more natural. Now I'm going to go in with the contour shade, and like I said, I'm going to use the shade Toast, and as you can see, it's a lot darker than my skin tone. So yeah, I'm just going to apply it in the same areas I applied medium Bisque. You want to make sure that when you're blending out the contour, you want to blend up. You don't want to blend down because that just kind of defeats the purpose of sculpting and defining. So you want to make sure that you blend it up kind of towards the cheekbone, but not where you're going to be applying highlight like right on the cheekbone. So you just want to stipple it in that area and just kind of work the product upward. With contouring, you really don't want to apply the shade or blend it out any further than like the edge of the eye, because that kind of gives you the like a more manly face shape and kind of makes it look a little more angular and a little more structured. And you want the structure, but you don't want to look like a man unless that is what you're going for. Then you can do that. Okay, so there is one side of my face highlighted and contoured, and if you want to just go back in and sharpen things up, you can go back in with your highlight shades and just kind of apply it in the areas that you just want to kind of brighten a little more, because sometimes you can get contour too low, and really you should probably contour before you highlight. I should have done that. So I'm just going to go in with the yellow corrector and go right underneath the contour here. I'm really not going to go anywhere else because I don't really need it, but sometimes if I blend too low, I like to do this. So now I'm going to go ahead and start on the other side with the other method, but I'm not going to work in sections this time like how I did with the other side, where I did the highlight and then blended it out and then went in with the contour. I'm going to apply everything all at the same time, and then comes the really cool part with the foundation. And once again, I have nothing on this side of my face, no foundation or anything, so that's key to this method. And I forgot to mention this on the other side, but I do apply the bronzer a little bit thicker than I do the contour. I apply a very little amount of the contour on top of the bronzer, and there's another gnat. In every video, there's a gnat, and it bugs me. I apply the bronzer a little more liberally. As you can see, I just applied it all in this area. I'm not being super careful or anything, but I do want to be pretty careful with the placement and precision of the contour shade, because if you apply too much contour, you'll just look like a drag queen. Unless that's what you're going for, it's not what you want. So I just totally forgot to tell you what this method is. Oh my gosh. So this method, if you haven't figured it out, is applying all your highlight and contour cream products underneath your foundation. And once you have everything in the correct placement, you go in with your foundation. It just blends everything out. This is pretty much the most natural of highlighting and contouring techniques, I think. So if you're a beginner, this is probably something you want to try out, because there's really not a whole lot of messing up you can do. And like the blending of the foundation is just going to kind of blend everything together. As long as you're like stippling or like dabbing the foundation on, you're not going to move anything around. It's going to stay in the same area. So yeah, I can't believe I forgot to mention that. But for the contouring shade for this method, I'm going to use the shade Espresso, and this is a little bit darker than Toast. This is Toast and this is Espresso. And the reason I'm using a darker shade is since we are applying the foundation on top, you kind of want everything to be applied pretty heavy, and you want to use like more intense colors. I'm going to change up the contour color because I want this to show up most prominently underneath the foundation. So now that everything's in the right place, I'm just going to go in with my finger and just kind of very lightly just pat everything in, but I'm going to leave this very thick. I'm not blending this out. I'm just kind of warming it up with my finger just a little bit so that it blends better. Okay, so now that everything's warmed up, now I'm going to go in with my foundation. I am using the Covergirl Outlast 3-in-1. I'm just going to use the same beauty blender. You could also use something like a stippling brush. I just like how the beauty blender or a dampened sponge just kind of lets everything melt into your skin. And since this is a concealer, it does pack coverage. It does pack really good coverage. You really don't have to use a whole lot of foundation. And like I said, you don't want to rub it in. You want to just stipple it in, because if you rub it or drag it, then it's just going to move everything around, and you want to make sure that everything stays in the place where you applied it. I personally like to start blending in the highlighting shades, and then once I have all the highlighted areas blended out, I go in and start blending out the contour and the bronze shades. I'm just going to take a little bit on my finger and just kind of dab it in a few areas just to make sure that I do have the foundation color and I'm not just blending out the concealer. Okay guys, so there is method 2 done, and as you can see, there are no harsh edges. Everything just looks very well blended, and everything just looks very natural and very seamless. So now I'm going to go ahead and set everything with powder. You definitely want to make sure that you set this with powder because you did a lot of work and you don't want it to be faint throughout the day. So I usually use a banana powder. This is the Sephora Bright Set Finishing Powder in Banana, and I don't think you could use this if you have more fair skin. But if you have light, medium, and up skin tones, especially if you have deeper skin tones, this stuff is amazing and it really helps brighten everything up. But for setting the rest of the face, I highly recommend you using a translucent powder, because if you use something with pigment or with coverage or anything that has a color to it, you're going to start to lose the intensity of your highlight and contour. And my favorite right now is the NYX HD Finishing Powder in Translucent. It's really finely milled and it sets your skin beautifully and just makes it look really airbrushed. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys what each side looks like once the powder's on. And I am going to do blush and highlight and all that stuff, but there's no use in me showing you that right now. So here is the side where I apply the concealer on top. This is the more subtle side. As you can see, it's very, very natural, but you still have that definition. Here is the side where we put the concealer on top of the foundation. As you can see, it is a little more defined. It is a little more intense, I guess you can say, but it's not super intense or anything. It's still very natural. This is highlighting and contouring with cream / liquid products. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's been a long time coming. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me today. Thumbs up if you like this video, subscribe, follow me on all my social media. All the links are below, as well as all the products I am wearing on my face and everything that I talked about today. And I hope you guys have an absolutely beautiful day. Mwah. I like translucent powders on the daily. Oh, I hear you walking around. I don't want to hear you walk around. I hear you. I'll get the camera on you and you'll be on YouTube. Put your headphones on. Leave those on. Leave those on. Yeah. So I'm going to apply the concealers on the... Oh my god. You got me all messed up, Brian.